Liberal Democrat MP Mark Oaten and political presentation consultant Graham Davies.
You'd never wash your dishes in a dirty sink, so why wash them in a dirty dishwasher? It may look clean, but you can't see what's built up inside. To help
Take a look at some of the best stories in tomorrow's papers. Joining me this evening is Liberal Democrat MP Mark Oaten and political presentation consultant Graham Davies. First, though, let's remind you what's on the front pages of those papers. Payback time. The Daily Telegraph leads on MPs' pledges to repay some of their expenses. It also has those details on claims made by members of the Liberal Democrats. The Independent reports that Conservative leader David Cameron gave his party members an ultimatum: pay it back or face the sack. The Daily Mail writes that Cameron has barred all Conservative MPs from making claims for furniture, food and household goods. The Guardian leads on the newly established party panel set up by David Cameron to resolve excessive claims. The Times also has David Cameron's rewrite of party rules. Judges have been told not to jail burglars if they're on drugs. That's according to the Daily Express. The Daily Mirror leads on Katie Price and Peter Andre's separation, reporting that the model has asked her singer husband to reconciliate. And there are more details on that split in the Daily Star. OK, well, time to take a look at some of those stories in a little more detail. Very good evening to you both. And we are starting, no surprise there, with the expenses row. The Daily Mail's headline, payback time. The Westminster gravy train has finally driven off the rails, and it leads on David Cameron's new initiatives. What do you make of them?
Well, just when you thought that it wasn't possible for politicians to become any less popular, in a highly energised and indignant speech, David Cameron has barred MPs from his party making claims for furniture, food and household goods, and they also have to post their expenses claims on the internet as soon as possible. And he's also outlawed within the Conservative Party in Parliament the practice of flipping in relation to second homes. Now, he's certainly the first leader to move on this. He's been the fastest and the most practical in terms of talking about it in public. But frankly, I saw the speech and I felt that his indignance was rather artificial. He must have known about this for an awful long time. He's worked himself up into a froth of anger about it. And frankly, it rings rather hollow that he should just be reacting now.
But he was still the first party leader to come up, yes, stand his ground and say what he was going to do about it.
He's managed to get slightly ahead, and that will probably be good for him in the long term.
He is ahead, of course, the Liberal Democrats next in line. Different rules in place put in by your party leader. Do you think that will do? What are Lib Dem MPs feeling about it?
I think the problem is that all the three party leaders are trying to outbid each other with these new rules, and the difficulty is that, as David Cameron's done, he said, well, here are the rules for my party. Nick Clegg set out rules for the Liberal Democrats saying that you can't make money out of buying and selling properties, and Gordon Brown's got his rules for his party. That's not a system which is going to stand up. If the three parties have different rules, we need to bring these together in some way. But at the moment, it's all about the party leaders desperate to show they're taking action.
What about the Conservatives' rule that all MPs must post their expenses online so everybody can see them? That's got to be a good thing, hasn't it?
I can imagine some of the knights of the Shires not even knowing how to use the internet, let alone post their expenses on it. But I think it is a good thing if we can have this so that you don't have to have a national newspaper steal a disc and then use stolen property drip, drip each day.
Well, they haven't actually stolen it, have they?
They've used a stolen disc. But
it's investigative journalism, not theft.
Well, there's a slight difference.
And again, that's not really the issue, is it? Because as everybody's made the point this week, you know, trying to get an investigation into that, nobody's interested. You've all got to hold your hands up and say guilty if guilty.
Isn't it better than having newspapers leaking stuff? If the MPs can post this themselves on the internet, then you don't have to have investigative journalism, discs being bought and sold in this way. It'll be all transparent. So I think that is a good idea, that we post this on the internet.
OK, well, it's all going to change anyway. I think there's no doubt about that. Let's turn to the Daily Telegraph, of course, has been leading this assault on expenses. What is it, day 5 now? Day 4, day 5. And,
it feels like 5 months this has been going on.
Payback time, its headline. Cameron orders Tories to refund excessive expenses, and that breaking news tonight that Hazel Blair, the Community Secretary, has said that she'll pay back £13 £50,000 on her second home. She didn't pay capital gains tax on that. Now she said she'll repay it, even though she still insists she hasn't done anything wrong. Let's just first of all talk about that. Will her repaying that amount of money, do you think that will stand her in good stead as far as the people who might vote for her in her Salford constituency go?
I think the interview that you've been running on Sky shows that she's very emotional about this. She feels she's let her constituents down. She feels she's got to do something, and this, from her perspective, is, I think, a step in the right direction. What I think is important, that politicians understand the anger of their constituents, and I think Hazel has clearly recognised that. Whether it's enough or not, we'll have to find out.
Did she look contrite to you?
Well, if she was a senior executive in a company and she'd had some issue over expenses or something of the like, and she then paid it back, she'd still have been sacked. And I think that's something that politicians have to bear in mind. Just paying it back isn't necessarily good enough. Some of them may have to go, either from their cabinet positions or from Parliament in general.
OK, well, of course, the Lib Dems get their turn in the Daily Telegraph today, and a whole host, a raft of revelations, not least concerning Sir Mingus Campbell, the former leader of the party, claiming £10,000 in soft furnishings for his London flat. He's refused to apologise, saying he's done nothing wrong, and actually the previous year he didn't even claim as much as he could have. So why shouldn't he modify, redesign his London home, bring it up to scratch? I think that will fall flat as well with a lot of your supporters, won't he? The fact that such a senior figure who's previously held in such high esteem, he's refusing to back down on this.
I think that if Ming felt he'd done something wrong, he'd be the first to apologise. That's the kind of decent guy that he is. But that he hasn't clearly demonstrates to me that he feels that what he's done is perfectly proper. A flat he's had for 15, 20 years, not refurbished before. If you look at the 10,000 over that time scale...
OK, but bed linen? We're paying for his bed linen, £373. A king-size bed, £1,000.
Well,
Roman blinds, £528.
How he furnishes his flat is Ming's business, but I know...
But it's not Ming's business, is it? That's the whole point, because it's our business, because we're paying for it.
Sure, and this is the issue, isn't it?
And as David Cameron has said, he's not going to pay... Well, his MPs can't claim for soft furnishings.
Well, it's the business between Ming and his electorate, and Ming to decide whether he feels that he can justify what he's done with his voters. Now, some MPs, quite rightly in my judgment, feel they've overstepped the mark and they should say sorry or pay that back. Others, such as Ming, don't feel they've done that. What you can't do is say every single MP must say sorry or pay it back. You've got to look at individuals and see what they've done, and in some cases they should, others maybe not.
Graham's dying to get in there. Is this a vote loser, whichever way you look at it?
I hope it is, because actually it's the very smallness of the amount of money sometimes that makes it so ridiculous. And the items, a fluffy duster, toilet seats, piano tuning, even £5 for dog food. Ridiculously small amounts of money, but it makes the MPs themselves look even more ridiculous. And I think it will be a vote loser all round for the major parties.
OK, Mark, we talked a little bit earlier about your expenses. As you said, that yours were revealed under the Freedom of Information Act. You claimed for a pair of oven gloves. Yes. You must be so embarrassed by that now in hindsight.
Of course it sounds silly, it sounds ridiculous. You move into a flat and you say, well, what are the things I need to be able to live in this during the week, and you buy all sorts of things and you put that claim in. But then when you look at the individual items, it feels silly, it feels wrong, I acknowledge that.
Do you think there should be a ban on small items like that? Should you be funding that out of your own pocket?
I just don't know how we solve this. I mean, what is acceptable if you're living in London in terms of to be able to be living and working long hours in London? What should you buy and what shouldn't you buy? We've got to sort this out because, an oven glove may not be acceptable, a dishwasher maybe. Who knows? We've just got to sort it out. OK, and the Times, not our finest hour. This has a section at the bottom right-hand corner talking about Michael Martin, the Speaker, who's coming under increasing pressure over his handling of the issue.
Well, of course, we probably go into that in more detail later on in another headline. But one of the things in the Times mentions £4.47, I think, the Cheryl Gillen thing. And I have to say that there is a question mark when it gets to such small amounts, in this sense, and I don't like to be seen to be defending MPs on this one, but there is a cultural thing here. There are a lot of staff involved in the House of Commons in the expenses claim procedure. And I think that probably MPs are encouraged when they first go into Parliament, as they get used to the culture, to fill in these forms, and it's a matter of course. And it sounds at its worst, well, everyone else is doing it, so I'll do it. But on the other hand, everyone else is doing it and thinking it was perfectly OK. It's only now that there seems to have been a mass realisation that, frankly, it isn't OK.
And that's spot on, because that's in a sense how it was. I remember when I got elected, what do I do with these claim forms? What do you do? You phone up the fees office and they say, oh, you can claim for this, you can do that. Or, you haven't claimed for this before, did you not realise